And so I saw Representative Padrón Colbert here. I saw Representative Gallegos, Representative Abbas Akil, and newly appointed Representative Lujan from Santa Fe was here. Is there anyone on WebEx that did not introduce themselves this morning?
Mr. Chairman, it's Bill Ream. Thank you. And anyway, I'm here watching what's going on.
Fantastic, Representative Ream. Thanks for joining us. And Representative Ream is from Bernalillo County, Northeast Albuquerque. And now we have to cut this presentation off at promptly 2:30 to hear from economics professor Adalfabach. So we're going to go rather briskly, but we're going to take our time. And we want to thank Secretary Jen Schroer of the Tourism Department, who has been working overtime. The pandemic has hit certain sectors harder than others, and our economy is based on food services, hospitality, tourism, our culture, and amenities. So we want to learn about what's happening with the economy and what we can do to improve our tourism once travel is freed up and we overcome this pandemic. So thank you, Madam Secretary, for joining us. We really appreciate having you. And I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I am Jen Schreier, Secretary of Tourism, and I have the honor today to review the tourism economy and explain a little bit about what is currently happening within New Mexico with our leisure, hospitality, and tourism sectors. And then also talk a little bit about what we're doing at the agency to both mitigate the economic injury and also projecting forward of how we recover from here. If I can figure out how to change my slide.
Take your time.
There we go. So we're reflecting on what we stepped into for 2020. The future was bright. We had 9 years of record-breaking growth in the tourism sector. This means that we were creating jobs, we were hiring our neighbors, we were building our communities, we were bringing wealth into our communities, both rural communities and our urban centers. It looked really bright, and we were on a trajectory to really actualize tourism's full potential. As we all know, all of those, that future really started to change in early 2020. We saw in 2019 visitor spend at a record high at $7.4 billion, which was an 18% increase. We saw nearly 100,000 jobs supported by visitor spending, an increase of over 7% since 2015. 737 million in 2019 state and local taxes. Tourism for New Mexico means wealth for New Mexico, that we're building our economy, we're diversifying our economy, and this has been a strategy that has worked very well for our entire state. I specifically want to talk a little bit about Albuquerque. While we saw growth across the entire state, I want to just thank our partners at Visit Albuquerque, because they saw an incredible year in 2019, and I am so proud of this industry. I'm so proud of the professionals that give their 100% and commitment to excellence every day of the year. And Albuquerque saw an annual percent growth 2019 over 2018. We were in the top 10 markets in the nation for 4 of the hotel KPIs. And this is just something that we need to take a moment and celebrate. There's a lot of things that we need to celebrate, and I just want to really commend our hospitality industry for one incredible year in 2019. These KPIs with revenue change, occupancy, average daily rate, and revenue per available room, this is the dream. This is what we have been working so hard to achieve, and I also know that we're going to be able to come back. Just today, Visit Albuquerque was able to share that TripAdvisor announced that Old Town Albuquerque is of the top 10% of all tourism attractions in the world. And when we have assets that are that amazing, that others recognize are incredible and they want to experience, I know that we can see this industry rebound.
And Madam Secretary, KPI
So I want to take one moment, if I may, Mr. Chair, just to say thank you to our tourism professionals. Man, they've had a hard year, but they have accomplished so much. And these are the folks creating the jobs. This is our Main Street. This is our frontier communities. These are our art galleries, our museums, our restaurants. This is the working class. They are celebrating and protecting our culture, our heritage, and sharing that with the world. And I just want to say thank you so much. And we're going to need all of you to get through this together. I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact of COVID on tourism. I think we all know, we've heard from our constituents. We know what's happening in our communities, but I'm going to put some context and some data behind what we know just from listening deeply to our stakeholders. We're losing of an average of 403 million in visitor spending per month. A loss of over 2 billion so far, March through July, 82 million in lost GRT, 22 million in lost local GRT, and that's just so far. And we're projecting that it's going to cost quite a bit by the end of 2020. And if you look at our unemployment, this is actually a new expense, if you will, for the state. The cost of having tourism not fully functioning when we have about 24,000 people without a job. These are families. These are people's small businesses. These are artisans. And these are event producers. These are also vendors. We forget sometimes that even our food distributors have seen a decline. Our spirit distributors have seen a decline because our restaurants are seeing a decline. And so this has a ripple effect. So it's not just hotels. It's not just museums. It's not just tour operators. This has a very large expansion of who this impacts. And so we just want to keep in mind that this is a big hole. But what we know about this industry is that it does come back. It came back after wars. It came back after 9/11. It came back after the 2008 recession. And New Mexico in 2019 saw and realized the greatest year ever for tourism. So again, just looking at Albuquerque as an example, again, thanking our partners for providing this information. I really want us to all focus on what's happening right now with the aviation sector, because this is going to have long-term economic impact and implications. So our Sunport, our state, was amongst the top 10 states and jurisdictions with the largest year-over-year declines in TSA checkpoint volume. We're after New York, California, and this is very devastating. We need to keep our air service. Those direct flights are not only supporting tourism, they're supporting the larger economic development activities. And so I really ask our legislators here to really help and come together and work with your local airports, our commercial airlines. We need them to stay. It's going to be not only our connectivity for our own citizens and our own residents, but it also connects us to the greater world for economic development. And you can also see with our hotels, year-over-year percent change, we have seen a great decline, and they split it up by segment. So you can see the greater Albuquerque market. You can also see downtown, uptown meeting segment, airports, etc. And so this is just one community that has been impacted. There has not been one community not impacted by this pandemic in regards to tourism and its economy. So I want to really talk about what we've been doing here at the tourism department. I've had people say, oh, tourism isn't really happening, so it must be really slow in your agency. And that couldn't be farther than the truth. We have been providing technical assistance with all of our small businesses, nonprofit, for-profit, and our local governments and tribal communities. We have taken a disciplined approach, a proactive approach to provide as much assistance as possible. So I'm going to walk through a lot of those initiatives today. And I also put on a lot of these initiatives the right contact person at my agency. So if you have constituents that would like to engage, if you want to reach out to some businesses, if you want to reach out to the local governments, you know who to contact within my agency to support your efforts. I'm really asking today for a partnership. As fellow public servants, how can we work together so we can recover together? So as everything we do here at the tourism department, we start with a data-based approach. We really look at what is happening with all of the data points that we have available. We also have partnerships, and then we also make sure we do our own research to make sure we're getting the information that is necessary to make the best decision at the time. And so we have just completed the tourism employment study, which we did the first edition. We'll probably do another round in probably next quarter, but that is available. Our 2008 tourism recovery model, that's in progress. We have some top line data that I'll be going over later today. Our COVID-19 economic injury survey, which is in process. We are also partnering with DOT and the commercial airlines across the state to do a business development assessment, which is perfect timing, given that the CARES Act provided airlines funding. But with that funding, they had to keep their direct flights for a period of time. That deadline of having to keep those direct flights is coming to an end of September. And then you're going to see a very big shift within the United States of all of these different direct flights. It is imperative that we help our commercial airports to keep these flights for our future. We also look to a lot of our partners for research, and this research in particular really shows what people want to see when they make decisions about traveling. Paying attention specifically to number 7, if there's too many local residents that don't wear masks, then you're going to see people choosing other destinations because they don't want to go to destinations where they don't feel safe. They're looking for that social distancing. They're looking for safe practices. And so it is critical that New Mexico continues to polish its game and make sure that we're paying attention to safety. Again, more research that we have worked with is what consumers want to see from hotels. Again, safety is one of the primary things that consumers are looking for. And we're seeing a really big shift in consumer behavior. And so this right here points to it once again. 39% of people want denial of entry for customers or guests with a fever. Assurance that customer-facing employees are required to get tested. So these are some of the health precautions that consumers want to see. And we took this information very serious. Again, which of these you'll be likely to do on your next trip? You can see that 58.5% of consumers are looking to avoid crowds. 64% are looking to follow social distancing guidelines. 57% wear a mask. And so you can see a shift in how people are making decisions about travel and what their new expectations are to feel safe and to enjoy destinations. So with this data, we decided we needed to really listen to what the consumers were wanting, and we partnered with industry. We partnered with the New Mexico Hospitality Association, along with several different local communities to launch the New Mexico Safe Promise, which is really asking our fellow New Mexicans to wear a mask, to practice social distancing, wash those hands often, the things that we've been hearing for the last 6 months. And we have continued to expand this campaign identity to support safety, so that way our economy is able to move forward and open in a safe, disciplined manner. This also includes celebrity endorsements through the New Mexico Film Office and other corporate partners like New Mexico United and PNM. And I just really want to say thank you to all the people that participated in this, everyone that made the promise, because it's working. We're seeing a big change. We also launched New Mexico Safe Certified. This is a free training program for organizations to help support safe practices for not only their employees, but also their customers. It also aligns and helps compliance with the public health order and the COVID safe practices that were developed in partnership with industry. Currently, we have 558 businesses that have completed the program. We have over 80 communities that are represented, and we have nearly 2,000 businesses that are in the process of going through the training. This is really exciting that we have different organizations that have dedicated time and energy and their employees to go through this program to help keep everyone safe. These are the current training modules that are available. As you can see, there are tourism-related training modules for those COVID safe practices, but because we had so many different industries that were interested, they asked us if we would expand the program, which we did. So we also have call centers, grocery stores, manufacturing, food production, construction, farm, ranch, dairy producers, automobile dealerships, gyms, related services, and veterinarians. And so we have several different training modules for many businesses. And I really encourage all of you to work with your constituents that are in your communities, in your districts, to go through this. This is free online training. And with it comes several marketing incentives where they get to become New Mexico Safe certified, and they get to use different badges and social media and different posters to really promote their business. We also have an online directory that we are promoting because we want to make sure that these businesses that have taken the extra step, that have demonstrated leadership, get recognized, and they also get business from doing things right. And we just really want to celebrate them. And I also want to thank all the different partners we have to make this happen, including the New Mexico Society of Association Executives, who have really led the charge in developing these different modules. Our third campaign that we are hopefully launching October 1st is New Mexico Safe Dining. This is an app where consumers can find restaurants, participating restaurants that have been certified, and also it'll have a promotional component to it. Again, this is free for our restaurants to participate because we want to make sure that we have, excuse me, as many of our treasured assets as we can survive this pandemic. So I really encourage you to help your constituents participate in this. Our fourth campaign was Shop Local. We have taken our New Mexico True certified products and all of our partners, and we've done already an online shopping guide where we helped increase demand and help with sales for those businesses by doing marketing and promotion. We are just now launching a pandemic product guide that has several different products like hand sanitizers and several masks and things of that sort that are made here locally by our artisans and our people that love to do crafts and our local manufacturing. And we really want to make sure that we are celebrating these folks and giving them opportunity. We have also worked with the Department of Agriculture to help promote a lot of the products that they have through their programs as well. Our fifth campaign is Keep New Mexico True. This should not be unfamiliar with for any of you. This is our environmental stewardship campaign. We run it every year for the past 6 years. We have partnered this year, which I'm very proud of. Several state agencies came together. We put some of our funds together to be able to make sure that this campaign could last through summer. We know New Mexicans are enjoying the great outdoors, so that way we can continue to do social distancing and get out and just go hiking and walking and bike riding. And what we saw was a lot of litter. We saw a lot of litter all throughout our state. And so this campaign is all about taking care of our lands that we love so much. And so I really thank my sister agencies for all coming together and working with us to be able to make sure this campaign can last through the entire summer. Finally, with New Mexico Magazine, we've had to innovate. Usually we have quite a bit of advertising that is paid advertising that is tourism related. And because we are not inviting tourists to New Mexico Magazine has not realized as much advertising as they typically do. So they've been very innovative in figuring out, while we might not have as much revenue in, we can make adjustments so we're not, we don't have as many expenses and therefore not going in the red. They've also they forged new partnerships. They are going to be doing November 7th, a New Mexico True Heroes event where they're celebrating some of our great heroes from the coronavirus crisis. And so I really encourage you to tune in for that virtual event. They're partnering with KOB. Also, they have every single Friday, without fail, they publish 10 things for New Mexicans to do safely in New Mexico during this pandemic. And I just really want to commend not only their editorial board, but their whole team for really pivoting to be able to make sure that this magazine survives throughout the pandemic. Our co-op marketing program, this one pivoted and then it pivoted again and it pivoted again. It was really important that we put together the right program during this time, and looking at all the recommendations, even from the United Nations World Tourism Council, they all recommended to double down on your digital presence. And what we did is we partnered for a Google DMO, 360 amplification, really looking at our social and owned media, and then content creation. So that way we are prepared when we're ready to press the go button and to invite people back to New Mexico. We have the most inspiring, emotionally connecting, creative, and beautiful assets online. So we attract those people to come to our beautiful state. We have 42 industry partners from across the state with a total of 121 initiatives. Very proud of this, and I just really want to commend our local communities and tribal communities for opting into this absolutely free program to make their online presence as great as possible. So I want to say thank you to all their partnership. We're also working with our regional tourism boards to develop regional content. Again, for marketing, our content is king. We have social media, websites, editorial that we need to continue to produce day in and day out to capture the hearts and minds of people to come to our beautiful state. And so we are helping not only at the local level, but also at the regional level to make sure that we have enough content to really make a difference once it's time to invite people to New Mexico. As part of our crisis management, we stood up 9 industry task forces within tourism. And these groups meet on a regular basis. They share best practices. They have pivoted their business models and have really leaned on each other and us to help them through this crisis. We also partnered with Small Business Development Corp, SBDC, to help with some specialized training for these different sectors as well. And you can see on the screen that you can connect to some of your constituents with these different groups, and they're a great learning group. To further our partnership with Small Business Development Corporation, we have worked with them, and they have hired 7 tourism industry consultants back in late April, and they have been actively calling tourism-related businesses throughout the state to provide them technical support, consulting, business coaching, and connecting them to other resources. And I really want to commend Small Business Development Corp for being willing and able to partner with us because we knew that this industry was going to be impacted most of all. This industry is about bringing people together. It's about events. It's about life celebrations. And all of that came to a halt. And they have been an instrumental partner with the tourism industry to help us get through this pandemic. We also stood up a learning center, an online learning center. We knew a lot of things were going to be changing, and we wanted to make sure that our industry had the tools and resources to make the smartest decisions. And part of that is workforce development. And so this is on our industry site and is available. There's a lot of free resources and recommendations of what our industry needs to skill up on in preparation for recovery. Each year we grant out our Clean and Beautiful program. This year we actually granted out 130,000 more than prior years, and you can see that we have great geographic diversity in those grants. And if you have specific questions about those, you can contact Lucy at our office. Tribal tourism, we have been very intentional about reaching out on a regular basis to every single tribe and pueblo throughout the state to provide technical assistance, as well as connecting them to resources and making sure that they knew about the different programs that our agency has to offer. And that we've been doing that on a regular basis to make sure that even if they're not ready now, for them to know that we are here when they are ready. And especially when everyone's ready to invite tourists back to New Mexico. So talking a little bit about restarting the tourism engine. We had to shut down our marketing engine, and now we're going to eventually have to turn it back on. And so what does that look like? What does the future hold? And I think what's really exciting that there is a lot of hope here. I started off by saying that this industry has survived and has thrived after crises, whether that's a world war, or if that was 9/11, if that was a 2008 recession. This industry is elastic, what economists call elastic. And so it's very similar. If you start a fire and you put more gasoline on that fire, it's going to get bigger. And so we know, even looking at our data, you're going to see a lot of the curves from occupancy is already going up. It's in line with the public health order. So as a public health order adjusts, so does this economy. So I have confidence that it'll come back. How long is debatable? It depends on quite a bit of factors, and we're going to talk about that today. So here is our 2008 recession modeling. So you can see where our industry was back in 2006, how 2008 impacted our industry. We were on a growth pattern, and then 2009, it drops considerably. And then you can see it steadily increases every year. And that was not with increased investment. That was steady investment. No decline, but a steady steady investment year after year. And you can see that it is just continues to grow. And we're projecting that it's gonna take some time for this industry to come back to the same levels as our record-breaking 2019, which is understandable, but it's possible and it will happen. So here's a couple insights about what we can kind of expect as time goes on. So when it's appropriate for us to invite people back, here's some things that we need to remember, is that people are going to be traveling more by car. There's going to be fear about being in a plane for a while. People want to come see their friends and their relatives. They miss their family. I think we can all empathize with that. And so that might be the first trip a lot of people make. So we're going to be looking at a lot of road trips. We have a great drive market. We have beautiful road trips in the Southwest. And so we know that this is going to be something that New Mexico can deliver on. We also have some incredible hiking and backpacking, our national state parks, and what consumers think about New Mexico compared to our competitive set. And we compete really well on these top activity and interests that people are going to be looking at, especially during recovery from COVID-19. As many of you might remember, we typically have fly markets where we invest quite a bit of our marketing dollars to encourage people to fly and come to New Mexico. We also know that once this whole pandemic shakes out, those aviation direct flights are going to look a little bit different. And so we're going to be really evaluating and assessing, do we still invest in these or do we need to make adjustments? And that's only time will tell. And again, I'm asking for your partnership. Please work with your local commercial airports. They need to keep their direct flights. It is so critical, not only for tourism, but for also the greater economic implications. If we want to attract businesses to New Mexico, we need to have direct flights. If we want to keep our young people here, we need direct flights. So please, I just ask everyone, really work with those commercial airports. Again, new reality requires an assessment or reassessment. So we're going to be looking at those markets, like I said, once the time is right to see how things are going. Also, it's important to keep in mind that the cost of media is going to get very expensive. We have a whole nation that needs to turn their tourism economy back on. That means everyone's going to be marketing and marketing hard and spending a lot of money. We have already seen several states have taken CARES Act funding and put it into tourism. And so already you can see on the graph that several of the other states have more money than us by quite a bit. That means their voice is louder in the market. That means they get to reach more people. So I share this just to keep in mind, if we all keep in mind that our share of voice is directly correlated to how much money we have, and it's important that we keep the tourism department's budget steady. It is not a time to cut. So COVID-19 decline suggests 6 to 7 year recovery. This is our estimate at the agency when looking at some national data that is projecting more of a 4 or 5 year recovery. However, we know that our state tends to recover a little slower. We have less funding in our tourism department than other states. And so we expect a 6 to 7 year recovery. We do have a potential to shorten the recovery if we did do more investment. And I really want to show this slide, not for that purpose, but to show the cost to the state. So if you think about our visitor spend, increasing the state and local tax revenue, we can do that by 10 to 15% a year, both the state GRT and local GRT. We can also put people back to work, and we all know what the unemployment trust fund looks like, and the importance to get people back to work, because that is a very large expense. Each year, we can incrementally take people off unemployment and we can put them back to work in these jobs, which has very huge, significant savings to the state each year. So touching on lessons learned, Colorado back in 1993, their legislators decided to cut their tourism budget. They saw their economy shrink immediately by $1 billion. They were the #1 resort destination, and they dropped to number 17 like that. Year-over-year declines meant 76 million in savings, but they lost over 10 billion in economic losses. And Colorado's never returned to #1. It took 2 decades to regain a lot of their market share, but they never got back to #1. And I share this because I know we have to make some really tough decisions this legislative session. I want to thank you for making those tough decisions. But I will also want to provide some context around what it looks like when we cut and we don't grow our economy. This is an economy that can quickly come back compared to others. It can quickly bring people back off unemployment and back into our hotels, back into our museums, back onto tour operators, growing the entrepreneurial sector as well. This is small business. This is our working class. And I know that this industry can come back more quickly than others. And so just an air of caution about what Colorado did years ago. Also want to just point to what the factors are that drive tourism. And for me, this is very important. Clearly, we need customers coming into our state, spending money here, and then going away. They go back home. This is not just our hotels, it's our restaurants, it's our artisans, it's our main streets, it's our rural communities, it's our gas stations. If we have a lack of demand, we're going to have significant infrastructure challenges. This is a bricks and mortar industry, and if we don't have businesses in our bricks and mortar, that means all that commercial space is going to be empty. and it's going to be abandoned. We're going to have workforce, people that love living in our rural communities that can't find a job that are going to have to move. And so we're going to see potentially a wave of foreclosures. And so as we think about why is it important to drive demand, from people from out of state, it brings new money into our economy. It really helps these small communities especially thrive, especially our rural communities. So these are the counties that are at highest risk. This means that their workforce is supported by direct visitor spend. Santa Fe's over 20, Taos Lincoln, Drum 25, and so on and so forth. These are the counties that we're keeping a very sharp eye on. We want to make sure that we don't see those rural ghost towns. We want to keep New Mexico true. We want to keep our unique, authentic, beautiful land of enchantment. And that means we want our artisans and small businesses and not just have big box left standing at the end of this pandemic. So looking forward, again, I'm asking for your partnership. We have some outreach events that are coming up. We are doing 6 tourism town halls throughout the state, 1 in each region. Strongly encourage you to sign up, be a part of our conversation. We'd love to have you there. If you'd like to participate, please contact us. Also, please help us get the word out because we need our communities to have a voice throughout the entire state. And we want to have a really strong understanding. We know the data points and we know a lot of the people, but we need to know the stories. We want to hear from your constituents as well. And so I ask for your partnership for us to be able to do that. We are also holding a small business resiliency virtual event. So this is really to help businesses make it through. We're bringing different experts to do one-on-one coaching with these businesses. We have tax experts, we have legal expertise, because we know that these businesses are going to have to make some really tough decisions here. Do they stay open? Do they close? Do they get another loan? Do they have to file for bankruptcy? How do they get out of their commercial real estate lease? These are really tough questions that our neighbors are asking themselves. And so we're providing a platform for them to get the expertise and that coaching so they can make those decisions as best as possible. And then finally, October 27th, we're holding the Future of Tourism. We have invited several different national and state associations and experts to join with us to have a dialogue around what is it going to take, not only from an investment standpoint, but from a policy standpoint, so we can have that deep dive and understand what is it going to take for us to continue. Right now, my role is I am trying to protect this industry as much as possible by connecting them to resources and provide different expertise and marketing programs. But the next phase is going to look different. And we need to come together and have a dialogue about what that looks like, where we want to go, and how we can work together as a state to make that happen. Because there's not one community that hasn't been impacted and not one community that does not have a tourism economy. So I know there's a lot of people out there, my fellow New Mexicans, that are struggling. And I want to say that I am here for you, and I want to partner with this body to really support you to recovery. And with that, I just like to open up for questions. And again, I want to thank the chair for the opportunity to address all of you. This industry has been greatly impacted, and the more we can work together and collaborate, the better. So thank you.
And thank you very much, Secretary Schreier, for your work. We cannot afford a 6-7 year recovery, but I think if we put our heads together, I think a 3-year recovery and we'll be bigger and better than ever. We're going to go to committee. We're going to go up to San Juan County. But before we, Representative Rod Montoya, and then after Representative Montoya, we're going to go back here on the floor to Representative Akil. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Madam Secretary. You briefly had a page up that showed why folks are not traveling to certain parts of the country. There was like 7 or 8 different items. I tried to read through them, but I don't read that fast without my glasses. Are we still requiring people who travel to New Mexico to quarantine for 14 days?
Mr. Chair, Representative, members of the committee, currently the public health order does require that 14-day quarantine for both those that come in by aircraft and car.
So I mean, it seems to me that's our number one impediment. My family's had, this summer we had a wedding and a funeral here in New Mexico. And folks who were out of the state who wanted to come, I had to let them know I'm not even sure if you can attend. If you show up, you're going to have to stay in a hotel or somewhere for 14 days. I'm not sure how we can ever get to a point of having tourism back into New Mexico as long as we have a 14-day quarantine. I mean, all they're going to see is the inside of a hotel room for 14 days. Do we have any idea? I know you're asking us to partner with you to try and save the airlines, but this completely seems to be in the governor's hands as to whether or not we're going to allow people to come to New Mexico, stay in our hotels, go and eat, spend their money. I mean, it seems to me right now the only option is to come and stay in a hotel room and order out. It just doesn't seem to me that we can do anything until that health order is changed. Am I missing something there, Madam Secretary?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee and representative, thank you. That is a key factor of determining when we can invite people to New Mexico. And right now we have seen phenomenal progress in our numbers, and our public health system has done a phenomenal job of really, and I'll say all of New Mexico has done a great job of really lowering those numbers and doing their due diligence, wearing a mask. We've seen a huge increase in compliance with wearing a mask. And so while, yes, we cannot invite people to New Mexico while there's a 14-day quarantine, we are hopeful that that is something that will be adjusted in the near future. Also, I am not sitting back and waiting for the 14-day quarantine to go away, the mass gathering to be lifted. There are things that we can do now. And I think some of the items that I presented today in regards to the co-op marketing program with the content creation, the Google DMO, all the social content, as well as the campaigns on supporting our local retail and our artisans. Those are things we can do now. And I think how legislators can really help is getting your constituents plugged into these programs. Because when we do get the green light, Representative, then I can support everybody and I can take it to the next level. And so the more people that we have and throughout all of New Mexico, all those businesses that are plugged into these different programs, the faster we're going to be able to support them when we do get that green light.
Well, I am very concerned about our airports. Obviously, that is so important to our communities all across the state. We here in Farmington, we had a pretty vibrant airport up until 8-9 years ago. And when we lost a carrier and those daily flights out of our area, they relocated across the border in Durango. And we've not been able to get that back. And I am very concerned that in Albuquerque, if we lose those flights out, that they won't be back. And just trying to convince folks to come back to our local airport is nearly impossible. And I am concerned about that with this quarantine in place. If they're going to be making these decisions at the end of September and we don't have people flying in and out, I'm really concerned. I'm only giving an example of Farmington. I'm worried that happens in Albuquerque, because then if I need to catch an international flight, I'm going to have to drive to Phoenix. That's a 6-hour trip, or Denver. That is almost a 7-hour trip from Farmington. The Albuquerque Sunport is only 3 hours away, and so what happens to that airport in Albuquerque affects the whole state. So I don't have a line to the governor, and I imagine you meet with her often. That's something that, once again, I have folks contacting me saying, get the governor to open the state up. We're dying. Our business is dying. It won't come back. And that really is, at this point, the Supreme Court has said that's completely in her hands. So I'd love to partner with you. Just don't have any power to partner with you at this point, Madam Secretary. Thank you.
Madam Secretary, I think I'm next in line. Chair is taking a break. This is Abbas Akhil, and of course, thanks to Representative Montoya for raising up that point. I think that's really important, but it's catch-22. My two questions are somewhat different. I think I met you once and we discussed this, but what I'm trying to see is if we can expand the scope of what New Mexico True emphasizes in its ads. Right now, we focus pretty much entirely on outdoor activities. And I think what we should do is also promote our other strengths, our universities, our education institutions, our research institutions. We could also emphasize what we have in terms of, research parks. I think most people are not aware of what New Mexico has to offer other than outdoor activities. And New Mexico True has become almost a nationally recognized, symbol. And it would be very good if we can start also then advertising these other strengths and that we have in the state. That is something I'd really like to ask you to look into and see if it can be done. The other point which I'd like to know is, you showed the budgets for advertisements from other states and how we compare to them. What about the total budget for tourism in other states? How do we compare to Arizona, Colorado? Of course, you said Colorado has fallen behind. Other neighboring states that compete with us. How does our budget tourism compare to that? Could you give me a few numbers on that, please?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, representative, thank you for that question. In regards to the tourism department's budget here in New Mexico, we are still lower than our competitive states. Texas is up in the 50 million range. Colorado, Utah, and Arizona are all still a little bit higher than our base budget. However, where the big difference occurs with those 3 states, or actually 4 states, and our budget, is really when you take the collection of the top 3 cities in each of those states and compare it to the top 3 cities in New Mexico as it relates to marketing budgets. Those cities in those other states are very large budgets. And so they have a larger voice in the market considerably. And I can come back and provide the actuals for those. I know that, I think I can pull up a little data here if you give me 1 second. The nice thing about doing these virtual events.
Will you be forward?
Colorado, Arizona, and Utah are all between $21 and $22 million a year in their marketing budgets, and ours is just around 16. In regards to your first comment, in regards to the our marketing and promotion that our agency does, our creative that you see, we really deliver on adventure steeped in culture. And so we do highlight our cultural assets throughout the state. We are a multicultural state that has incredible things to offer. And the mission of my agency is to drive tourism, and we do that through leisure travel. We are not charged or required or asked per statute to promote the greater economic development initiatives for the state. We are sharply focused on tourism, which means we focus on our outdoors, we focus on our museums, we focus on our culture, our food. And so that's really why we have those guardrails, if you will, from my agency on what we promote. However, we do have several different partners, and we've extended the New Mexico True brand and worked with partners to be able to execute New Mexico True creative for those other items. So there is a New Mexico True talent that is down in southern New Mexico that leverages the power of New Mexico True to attract highly skilled workers to their region. We have several businesses that put our brand on their products if they are certified being authentically New Mexico made or grown right here in our state. And so we have identified different ways that we can extend the brand where appropriate. But right now, the greater economic development community has decided that they don't want to use our brand, which is their prerogative. So we are always open to have those discussions, but we definitely need to have partners to be able to execute different ideas such as that. So thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, for that answer. So how would we go about doing that, creating these kinds of partnerships to expand the scope? Do you have some suggestions or ideas about that?
I think, well, we have worked with UNM and the hospital system, but I think in regards to the greater economic development, that needs to be a discussion with Secretary Keyes, who leads economic development for our state as a whole, as well as the New Mexico partnership. That's their mission, is to promote the state from an economic development standpoint.
All right, yeah, thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you, Ms. Chair. I think that's all I have for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And here in the chambers, Representative David Gallegos.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, I appreciate this. I've learned a lot today. I was trying to find out, going back to Representative Montoya's discussion on the 14-day quarantine, do you know if we have a magic COVID number before we'll remove that quarantine? Has that been discussed?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and Representative, thank you for that question. I truly am leaving these decisions to our public health experts. My expertise is growing an economy. It's supporting small business. And I think that question is best for those medical experts to weigh in on. So I can't answer that question, and I think we need to trust that we are putting people first here in New Mexico, and when it's safe to introduce more risk, that's a decision that our governor will be making.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman, Director. And I appreciate that. I guess I'm glad that you're on board that we need to go ahead and continue looking to reduce that 14-day quarantine. My next question is from here in Santa Fe. I had someone reach out to me that has a business on the plaza that they cut their rent 75% to try to keep the business afloat that was renting from them. That did not happen. The business shut down. We as a state, are we doing anything to help? I thought they'd go to the city and city and county, but do we have any programs statewide that are helping some of these businesses that are totally shutting down due to no tourism?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Representative, thank you for that question. The administration has stood up several different programs that both for grants, that was part of the special session that the legislators were very strategic in putting together that grant program, as well as we have several loan programs through the New Mexico Finance Authority and Economic Development Department. I think there has been several landlords in the commercial real estate world that have been extremely caring and generous and trying to help their tenants through this time. And I'm very thankful that a lot of them are working with their tenants because this is very difficult. It is a bricks and mortar industry. And if you don't have customers, you can't pay your bills. It's very similar. Like if all of us don't have jobs, it's really hard to pay our mortgage or our rent. Same thing goes for these small businesses. So I really thank whoever your constituent is in Santa Fe that cut their rent. That was very kind. And I hope there's more people out there in the commercial real estate space that are doing the same to help all of us get through this together.
Well, thank you for that. She's actually not my constituent. I'm in Lee County, but they reached out to me because they were unable to get an answer. I appreciate that, and I'll get her some help with grants and loan programs. My last question for you is not a brick and mortar one. Do you know how the artisans on the Taos Bridge, have any of those reached out to us as a state? I don't know if they're back open. Have you heard anything from them?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, representative, I apologize. I do not have an answer to that question, but I will find out and get back to you.
Well, I appreciate that, and Mr. Chairman, that area, I've got a ranch or had a ranch in Colorado, and that area is very, very popular for tourism. It's got the bridge and it's got a lot of items for sale there, and I just would hate to see that fall into disarray also. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your presentation. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you, Secretary. We got about 10 more minutes because our next presenter is going to go on promptly at 2:30. So we're going to go to Representative Rebecca Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary, for the presentation.
One person after you, Representative Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary, for the presentation. I wanted to ask, several of the comments in your presentation talked about the incredible diversity, leisure, travel, outdoors, culture, food, and of course, that brings me to questions about state parks. And I have a growing concern about the condition of our state parks, the fact that they are a fee for service and you get what you pay for, and the fees haven't been raised in 18 years. And it's pretty sad when the users are saying, could you please raise my fee and maybe put in a comfort station? I'm tired of using porta potties. How is it that we plan to grow tourism as our state parks are crumbling and falling apart?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and representative, thank you so much for your question. Our state parks are some of our treasured assets that provide wonderful opportunity for not only New Mexicans, but also our visitors to recreate. There are several infrastructure projects and priorities throughout our entire state, not just our state parks. And it is difficult to prioritize and decide where to invest those funds to make sure that we keep our infrastructure up. And while we have kept our fees low, which has helped New Mexicans experience this great land that we have, it does provide a challenge. And I think that's a great question that could be brought forth to New Mexico Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources and state parks to see what their plan is in regards to the future of those parks. And I also think, Representative, that it'd be wonderful to have you come and everyone come and participate in the Future of Tourism Summit. So we do get those types of tidbits of what do we need to do to be able to grow tourism at the local level. And there are infrastructure needs. And so I think really looking across different agencies to see where we can collaborate, we can have great success. So I really invite you to come so we can have a further conversation on that matter. So thank you, Representative Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary. And I really appreciate your advocacy and the hard work that you've done during this challenging time. And you mentioned that state parks is underneath Energy and Natural Resources. And I'm wondering if there's been any discussion as strategically to move them out of energy now that we have an outdoor recreation department where they may become, under economic development and they are a treasure, to be treated like a treasure. And maybe the thinking in economic development may be a little bit more innovative and a little bit more creative in that My experience has been that State Parks doesn't want more than $2 million of capital improvements, no matter how much money we choose to offer them, because it is not their practice to subcontract for construction or subcontract for architecture designs or bids. They want to use their own staff, and the capacity isn't there for them to do much. But if we really want to see a movement in state parks and improvements in that area for tourism, I think it's going to take a pretty radical change. And I'm hoping that there's discussion of moving state parks to economic development under outdoor recreation. Have you heard any of that discussion?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and Representative, I have not heard any of that discussion at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary.
No, great points, Representative. There's actually two folks up on the board. We have about 7 minutes left. Let's go out to Valencia County, then we'll come back to the chambers with Senator Brandt. Representative Clemente Sanchez, are you with us? Welcome. Senator Sanchez.
I think he's on mute.
Go ahead and take your mute off, Senator. We'll go back to Senator Sanchez in a moment. Senator Brandt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and most of my questions have been asked, so I will just quickly ask. One of the things that I've noticed as I've gone around the state and traveled a lot is our rest areas are in horrible shape. What is being done, as people travel, a lot of the travel through our state is on the road. And so what's being done to update those, and where can we help you to make sure you have the resources needed to update those? Because you leave from Texas and come into New Mexico and it's night and day. You travel from Arizona into New Mexico, the rest areas are just really in bad shape in our state.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and Senator, thank you for that question and those comments. I'm very pleased that we have been in partnership with DOT. They manage those rest areas as well as the visitor center infrastructure in those buildings. And we are currently looking at where some of those investments need to go. But DOT has been very open in looking at how we improve those rest areas. It's going to take some time.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, and I am really concerned about, Representative Dow mentioned the state parks, and I know they're not under your department, but the overnight camping is actually one of the things that actually makes no sense on the public health order, and I don't know if you can reach out to the other departments on that and ask, why that is being done, because on every scale I've looked at as far as risk factors go for COVID, camping is one of the lowest. In fact, the only safer thing you can do is lock yourself up at home and have no contact with the outside world. Camping is one of the safest things you can do, and yet we haven't been allowed to camp. And so as we want to move around within our own state, we're not allowed to do that. And so what I've had to do is leave the state to go camping, and that doesn't help. Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask that maybe we look at inviting Secretary Kunkel and Secretary Scrace to sit in on one of our committees as presenters so that we can ask some of these questions to them, because I think our state is being harmed irreparably with these health orders, and some of them just don't have the scientific basis to do so. I think a perfect example is the camping. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now we'll go back to Senator Sanchez. And just take a moment. Senator Sanchez is out in Valencia County, and you have the floor. While the senator's getting online, I'll do my closing remarks now, because we got to go to the professor here in about 5 minutes. But if you look on the managing the pandemic, the way to ignite recovery in the presentation, the number one thing that spurs tourism is that COVID cases are going down. that the location is managing the pandemic well, and that visitors and locals are practicing social distancing and wearing masks. It's, the health order is a tough thing to accept, but the quickest way to recovery is to manage the spread of the virus. And we're just waiting for Senator Sanchez to maybe call in. Folks can call in and listen to it on their phones, or they can view us on the computer. They can view us while driving. We have 11 legislators here on the floor, Madam Secretary, and another 10 or 15 back in their hometowns. Any luck? All righty, well, thank you, Senator Sanchez. Thank you for joining us here today. And Madam Secretary, tremendous job by you and your department. I mean, since the bank crisis of 2008, the tourism has just taken off here in New Mexico. I think as folks were more reluctant to travel overseas, they chose in-state. There's no greater state to experience outdoor recreation, culture, tourism, dining than New Mexico. And I think when we do things right under your leadership, in 3 to 5 years, we'll have, outside of New York, San Francisco, the most fantastic dining in the country and the most outstanding recreational opportunities in the country. Our next two presentations are dealing with that exact same issue. And so I live in Bernalillo County, my district, my western boundary is the Rio Grande. And in Bernalillo County, it's pristine. It's the bosque. We love it. It's just like it was hundreds of years ago. But at the same time, it's one of the few rivers that goes through a city that has no economic impact on that city, no economic development on that city. And I think if you maintain environmental integrity and safety and historic integrity, you can develop a riverbank to enhance economic development, economic growth. We have no choice in New Mexico but to grow and to think of creative and innovative ways to grow, even if it may rub against our previous notions of what we want New Mexico to be. So we're very thrilled to have our next presenter. Thank you, Madam Secretary, so much for joining us. Our next presenter has to return to class. He's a professor of economics at the University of Oklahoma, which is our neighboring state. And sir, are you with us, Professor? And we'll await the professor to get back online. But while we're at it, any parting shots, any closing statements, Madam Secretary, on what we should be thinking about between now and January? I think the Secretary, she jumped offline. So we're at 3:15, we're going to hear from Axi Navas, who's the director of the newly created Recreational Division of Economic Development Department. Really innovative way to combine that outdoor recreation. The State Parks Department is under the Environment and Natural Resources Department. Our Game and Fish Department is kind of floating out in state government and is not really under the power of the governor's office. And then the bosque and our riverbanks, some are privately owned, the others are state owned, and it's almost impossible to develop even responsibly along those riverbanks. So in doing research this past couple of weeks, I came across a study that Tulsa initiated, and Professor Robert Doffenbach did the study and wrote a white paper on riverbank economic development. So I decided to invite him to share his knowledge from that study and elsewhere. So we're awaiting his arrival, and we'll go back on.
Mr. Chairman, was he part of the development of the Oklahoma City downtown area where they did the Riverwalk down there? Because I was actually there when that was done. I don't know if he was part of that or not.
I believe his white paper led policymakers to make those decisions.
That's a really good, really neat development. Yeah, like I said, I was living there, I was going to college there when they actually put that in, because I was kind of late going to college. So.
And that city center brand also built an arena without an NBA team, and then got one, built a downtown baseball stadium, which was incredible for the revitalization of that city's downtown core. Representative Dow.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Burt, even if it's the Tulsa Riverwalk, that's where I went to college, and that Riverwalk has become an amazing economic driver for the area.
Was that 50 or 60 years ago?
Ooh.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a copy of his white paper?
We will. We don't have it here on the desk, Representative Padra Colbert, but it'll be online. It's academic, but it's a wonderful read. And it actually was a study on the Tulsa riverbank, but I think that conversation in Oklahoma did spur the development in Oklahoma City. But it was specific to the pros and cons of developing economic development along the Tulsa riverbank.
So they're going to send it to us?
No, it'll be online. Like give me a day or two when you jump online on our agenda, it'll be one of the handouts, one of the little PDF handouts.
Mr. Chairman, if people are interested while they're waiting, you can do a Google search for the Gathering Place and see the park that was just built along the river.
There you go.
The Gathering Place.
Any luck? Should we recess for 10 minutes? Or? Oh, let's stay on. So instead of recessing, we're going to stay online. The professor has squeezed out this half hour for us, so we'll wait for him. Yes. About 10, there's 11 of us, 11 legislators down here. And for the folks listening at home, it's entitled The Economics of Place and Potential Impacts of Arkansas River Development Project, prepared for the Tulsa Regional Chamber of Commerce and prepared by Dr. Doffenbach, who will be joining us shortly. I'll email it to folks now.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Representative Roybal Caballero, please.
Yes, that's an excellent piece. We use it as a great reference in the School of Architecture and Planning, in Community and Regional Planning. I would suggest to everyone read it, and so happy that you have the professor on. So I just wanted to sneak in a plug for the reference and for the professor. Thank you.
Thank you. Please call him. He probably has a grad student in his office talking his ear off. If you could call him. sooners or early? No, he's a sooner. Professor's a sooner. No, no. And didn't Senator Bryant, doesn't your school have a great dentist program? Oh, that's right. I was thinking Oral Roberts. Okay, the joke was meant for you. Why don't we take care of some business? We do have a quorum, and the minutes, I believe, were sent out. Do we have any? There's a motion to adopt by Representative Akil, and a second by Representative Padro Covert. Any discussion? We could always change them later by bringing them back. But with that, the minutes for the last meeting have been adopted. Also, friendly reminder on per diem, be sure to email Peter Kovnat to receive per diem and specify mileage as well. So you're asking for per diem and, if appropriate, mileage. But you have to do it in an email because we're not, to Peter Kovnat. Please.
Thank you. Hi, all. I'm not going to do that.
So, thank you, Peter. So members, check your email. Make sure you specifically say, I'm seeking per diem and mileage, not just I'll be there or an RSVP, but a specific ask for per diem and mileage. And Peter, were you able to get a hold of the gentleman? I sent the PDF to, the link rather, to you, if you could send it to the members of the committee. And thanks, everyone. Let's give him about 5 minutes. We did ask him on such short notice to present because it's such a fascinating document that he came up with. Even if not, we'll go to Director Navas, and she's prepared here in a minute. So we'll stay on the internet, but we'll briefly procedurally recess till 2:45. Yeah, I should have called him Friday. I should have called him Friday and thanked him. is, I mean, this is cutting edge, man, because I don't think we can do it in the North Valley, because too many liberal folk, but I think we can do it on the west side. There's some nice places on the west side. We can, like, coffee shops and bars and stuff, but we're actually on right now. Why don't we get Director Navas ready, and we could have a lengthier conversation on outdoor recreation and business opportunities, and maybe incorporate some of the ideas with regards to economic development. All righty. Alrighty, thank you, Director Navas. Thank you so much for being here with us early. And this is just an exciting aspect of state government. One of the few but most exciting developments along with early childhood education is the New Mexico Outdoor Recreation Division, which is a new division within the Economic Development Department. We're very pleased and happy to have the director of that division, Axi Navas, with us to present, and also the legislator who led the charge, Angelica Rubio, is with us as well to ask Q&A after that. But Ms. Navas, thank you for joining us. We have about 11 folks here in the House chambers and another 10 or 15 on the Nexus, and take as much time as you need, and then we'll go to committee for question and answer. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you so much for your time today and for your interest letting me present. And with that, I am just going to share my screen and pull up this snapshot of what we've been doing over here at the Outdoor Recreation Division in year one. Yes, as Mr. Chair said, I am Axi Navas, the director of the Outdoor Recreation Division. The division celebrated its year anniversary not too long ago, and I hope today to impart on all of you our ambitious vision for outdoor recreation in New Mexico. Our goal is nothing short of transforming the state's economic, social, and environmental future by championing sustainable outdoor recreation and increasing access to it for all New Mexicans. Outdoor Recreation Division works to achieve positive, measurable impacts within economic development, conservation, education, and public health. And what follows today in this presentation is a snapshot of those successes, what we're prioritizing, and what we want to keep focusing on moving forward. Our ultimate outcome, this is what we work to achieve every day. And we take a very holistic view of the outdoor recreation economy. We recognize that it is a complex fabric that touches on public health, the environment, education, and economic development. Our ultimate outcome, what we're working to achieve. We work to ensure that all New Mexicans gain from the public health, environmental, and economic benefits of sustainable outdoor recreation. How do we do that? What are we measuring to make sure we're on track for that ultimate goal? These are the 4 key performance indicators that we're tracking on a daily basis and that we're going to continue tracking moving forward. So number 1, the number of new outdoor recreation jobs created by Outdoor Recreation Division or Outdoor Recreation Division adjacent programs, which we will talk about in depth. The number of outdoor recreation, conservation, and access projects funded and or led by ORD, and this includes the Special Projects and Outdoor Infrastructure Fund that I will also talk about in more detail. The number of youth to benefit from outdoor education programs, including the marquee and groundbreaking Outdoor Equity Fund, and then finally, the value of earned and owned media impressions for ORD, for the office, and for New Mexico outdoor recreation as a whole. So, key performance indicator number 1, jobs. We want to grow the outdoor economy in New Mexico in order to add jobs and increase wealth throughout the state. Because they can't be with us here in the Capitol in person, I wanted to introduce you to two business owners in Albuquerque. Karen and Walt Wagner started Albuquerque-based Tactical Application Vehicles, and they specialize in building expedition-ready vehicles for outdoor recreationists. They are truly global leaders and have earned media in all the big OHV publications for what they're doing in Albuquerque. They worked with us on funding for 2 shop jobs through the Jobs Training Incentive Program back in the winter of 2020. And I'll let them speak a little bit to their partnership with us, and you'll get a tour of their garage.
Hey there, I'm Walt Wagner.
And I'm Karen Wood Wagner.
And we own Tactical Application Vehicles out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. We build highly capable, custom-tailored expedition vehicles primarily off of the Toyota platform. The Outdoor Recreation Division introduced us to the JTIP program, which helps in hiring additional shop technicians. The EDD has also been great, providing other resources available to us as our business grows.
So a few highlights here in our jobs KPI. One of our goals is to illustrate the breadth, the size, and the power of the New Mexican outdoor recreation economy. One way we've done that, probably the most concrete way we've done that to date, is to partner with this premier economics analysis firm, Headwater Economics, and REI. And REI grant made this report possible. On this report that you see here, Outdoor Recreation in New Mexico's Economy. The goal there is to lay a foundation, to talk about the New Mexico outdoor recreation economy in that holistic way, define it, and showcase what exactly we mean when we say it, and also its contribution to the state's economy using Bureau of Economic Analysis data, primarily, also going through a few local partners. State Parks Division provided data. The Department of Game and Fish did as well. So we use the partnerships in state and then also at that federal level to show that fabric of the outdoor recreation economy in the state. And that is a resource that's available on our website. Happy to talk more about some of the data we came up with. But that was one of the first projects we tackled, was to lay that foundation, that real table setting of what we do, what we're talking about when we talk about the outdoor economy. Number 2, earlier this year, we awarded $100,000 to 2 outdoor recreation incubators. The goal here was to invest in New Mexican entrepreneurs, people of all ages, from all backgrounds, who wanted to start businesses in the outdoor recreation economy. There is such a vibrant entrepreneurial spirit in New Mexico among outdoor recreationists. These 2 programs, via San Juan College in Farmington and Creative Startups, which is a nonprofit that ran a series of outdoor recreation incubators in 8 rural libraries across the state. These programs were intended to help those entrepreneurs get their start. And we're already seeing some really promising data, despite the fact that they've had to pause their in-person learning temporarily and then move much of it online. So from San Juan College, according to the report they sent us in June, this program helped them create 4 new outdoor recreation businesses in the greater Farmington area, who are employing 12 new people and have reported $260,000 in wages. Creative Startups, they say that they had 25 entrepreneurs participate in their outdoor recreation online business training curriculum, people who very well might go on to start that next outdoor recreation powerhouse in the state. We also try and serve as the connective tissue between outdoor recreation businesses in New Mexico and the well-established Economic Development Department programs, such as JTIP. That's the example I give here. That's the Jobs Training Incentive Program. These are 2 businesses we connected them with. You already met Karen and Walt with Tactical Application Vehicles. We also connected Best Deal Retailer. They've since rebranded, but Best Deal Retailer, which is a new software company based in Albuquerque, to JTIP, which helped them hire 14 people also in January. We're continuing to serve as that resource, just making sure that our businesses, our outdoor recreation businesses, are available of the menu of options that are out there, both at the state level as well as at the federal level. And then finally, I see this foundation setting as enabling us to recruit new outdoor businesses. That is certainly in the short-term plan and in the long-term plan. And I think that all of the work we're doing comes together to help us do that. But we definitely also want to prioritize the incredible companies that are here now and that make up the outdoor recreation economy now in New Mexico. We want to support them. One other person I would like you all to meet is Judy at San Juan College. She's going to give us a quick tour of the Makerspace, which received one of these $50,000 outdoor recreation incubator grants from the Outdoor Recreation Division to support New Mexican entrepreneurs.
Welcome to the Big Idea Makerspace at San Juan College. The Outdoor Recreation Grant enabled us to hold a really exciting workshop for 60 people interested in outdoor recreation business opportunities in San Juan County. In business, especially new business, marketing is make or break. So we also arranged to have a local digital marketing company do digital marketing packages for 8 of our outdoor recreation businesses. So do your digital marketing online, use our Makerspace to create your products and services, and enjoy our beautiful outdoors. Thank you.
I touched briefly on recruiting businesses to come to New Mexico. I want to give you one example of that, and just to hone in on that point a little bit further, how I see the work of the division right now is laying that foundation based on equitable trail access, business resources, education to attract these industry leaders while supporting New Mexico companies. The Readiness, which if you are a cyclist, as I know Representative Rubio is, if you are a cyclist, you very well might know their work. They're a leading publication in the cycling world, so gravel riding, bike packing, road biking, mountain biking. Their editor-in-chief just recently moved to Santa Fe because of the trail access, because it's a city within a state that has that foundation for incredible outdoor resources. It's just a matter of getting that education out there for more businesses. But this is what John Watson, the founder of that company, has to say about New Mexico. So in terms of cities with a cycling population, trail stewardship, access to expansive trail networks and beautiful backcountry trails just a short pedal or drive away, it's hard to beat Santa Fe. When we were looking for a new home base, we had an extensive checklist, and Santa Fe fit right into all those boxes. Plus, the food can't be beat. This, for John Watson, Santa Fe was the right fit. For a lot of other businesses, it's going to be a different part of New Mexico, and it's about that education to show these businesses where they best fit into the New Mexican outdoor recreation fabric. But the type of earned media that the state as a whole gains and earns from John Watson being in the state is enormous. And I'll give you one example. This is a homepage story that appeared on August 18th about bikepacking the CDT in northern New Mexico. It had a number of beautiful photo spreads, long form article that I'm sure ranks highly in SEO, that's getting the state and that particular trail a lot of organic editorial reach to a very dedicated core bike audience that maybe didn't know that the CDT of northern New Mexico is one of the most beautiful stretches of trail on the planet. So it's about using those partners in the private sector to continue to champion that message of the state as a true outdoor recreation destination. And that's what's going to put us on the radar of more companies like the Readiness. That's really exciting. I'm really glad to be working with John Watson in the future. And one more highlight from this jobs metric. We, in partnership with James Glover, owner of Once a Day Marketing, who I'm sure many of you know, just announced the launch of Endeavor New Mexico. It is New Mexico's first outdoor recreation trade alliance. We've done this in part because we understand the power in numbers. This is a private sector group. It's made up of outdoor recreation companies throughout the state who are coming together in this 501c6 membership program to advocate for the outdoor industry in New Mexico and show the industry's might in this state. We are also partnering with Endeavor, and I will say this as a save the date notice, on the Outdoor Economics Fall Forum, which has been transitioned entirely online this year and will be taking place on October 1st and 2nd. And we'll have a whole host of really great speakers, including our governor has agreed to speak, and Senator Heinrich, and then many of the businesses who are members of Endeavor New Mexico are going to be talking about some of the challenges that they have faced, and also some of the successes and the priorities that they are working on moving forward. This group's gotten a lot of interest so far, a lot of energy, both from the press, which I love to see. It feels like we've started a fire here. And then also, even more inspiring, from some private businesses. I'll read this quote from Honeymoon Brewery, where they say, "We are so excited that Outdoor Recreation Trade Group Endeavor New Mexico is working with New Mexico Economic Development Department to bring more investment and advocacy into New Mexico's outdoor rec scene. Thank you to everyone who made this happen." I get so energized to see that energy from our private sector partners. And it's a really key step in establishing the state's economy as a powerhouse and as one that touches on so many different types of businesses. So Endeavor is going to be a key step to do that. Really excited to see the official launch just last week. Access and conservation are key impact area number 2. We are building access to healthy lands and waters for all New Mexicans. Talked a lot about foundations here, and that to me is critical to what we're talking about today when we say we want to grow the outdoor recreation economy. A few highlights. We just launched the Special Projects and Outdoor Infrastructure Grant. This is a pilot grant program that launched this month with award announcements planned for late September. This is a series of grants we'll be making this fall between 3 and 5 to municipalities, tribal governments, regional governments, and nonprofits. Those are the eligible applicants to build outdoor recreation infrastructure in their communities. That includes everything from trails to educational signage to river access. This is a grant program intended to grow those access opportunities. We're connecting New Mexico projects with federal dollars. 2 examples of this. We've worked closely with Senator Heinrich's office to link specific projects in Farmington, Albuquerque, Raton, Gallup, the Boot Heel, Antelope Wells. Connect these specific projects with potential federal dollars that could be coming down the pipeline. That's a big goal of ours, to make sure that those community leaders in all of those places, both at the municipal level, the county level, nonprofits, know who to reach out to for grants or perhaps federal stimulus funding that might actually help outdoor recreation projects get funded. We are petitioning to protect 150 miles of water in the state under the Outstanding National Resource Waters designation. I won't go too deep into that, other than to say that this is a designation that recognizes the recreational significance of water in the state and 3 particular waterways. We have 3 particular waterways in our focus, and that's both an effort to protect these places as true recreational assets, and then that also helps us lay this foundation once again to say New Mexico is home to 150 miles and more of outstanding waters. It is truly an international outdoor recreation destination, which is true, 100% true, and this enables us to have some of that marketing language as well. Well, of course, the foundational reason to do it is to just protect these incredible places. And then finally, we've been championing bedrock conservation policy like the Great American Outdoors Act. This is also bringing in federal dollars to the state. So Senator Heinrich and the ORD, we hosted a virtual forum on how New Mexico stands to gain from the Great American Outdoors Act. This landmark conservation law turned into law this summer. It was passed and signed by President Trump, and it's a huge win for conservationists. It will fully and permanently fund the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which I'm sure many of you have interacted with during your time as lawmakers. We've seen a lot of money come in from that fund to invest in outdoor recreation infrastructure projects in the state, and that's going to continue to grow because of the Great American Outdoors Act. So part of what we've been focusing on for the past several months is to be a champion of such a thing, and to make sure that our communities are educated now that that money is going to be coming down the pipe on how to actually access it. Equity and education. Developing pathways for young New Mexicans to access and work in the outdoors. The key highlight I want to call out here is that we administer the groundbreaking Outdoor Equity Fund. Representative Rubio was the leader, really, one of the leaders on this incredible program that was written into statute when the Outdoor Recreation Division was created. And it is a program, if you are not familiar with it, to get kids, especially kids from low-income communities, outside. And I think the evidence that she really hit on a fire idea that really resonates with New Mexicans is the response to our first grant cycle. So we had 84 eligible applications with a total funding ask of over $1 million. And if we could fund all of that, we would get 36,000 young New Mexicans, the majority of whom have never experienced outdoor recreation outside over the next year. We have about $250,000 to award, which is what we will be announcing as soon as next week. And that is a mix of both state appropriations, but also private donations. This idea has caught on among the national outdoor industry leaders, such as the North Face, which just donated 2 months ago $20,000 to the Outdoor Equity Fund, the Turner Foundation, REI, the Wilderness Society. These are all groups that have come on to support the Outdoor Equity Fund and take note of it. And I'll tell you what, too, I have a number of other states asking me about this almost every week because they've noticed it too. And it's programs like this that I think really continue to establish the state's reputation as a leading outdoor recreation powerhouse in a very creative, unique way. We are steering a cradle-to-career statewide outdoor education strategy. When this report comes out in the spring, we will be the first state to have such a statewide comprehensive plan. This was made possible through a National Park Service grant that we were awarded, and it's made up of an advisory committee with 17 education and workforce development leaders to come together, put our heads together about how do we increase outdoor access in a very intentional way through education curriculum. So that's what this is all about. It's about growing that access and making sure that kids from a young age, from pre-K all the way up through higher ed, have access to these programs. And then finally, I want to note this $10,000 grant they awarded to the Silver Stallion nonprofit. I'm going to let them talk about it, and then I'll give you a little bit more background.
Hello, my name is Scott Neidham, and I'm the founder of Silver Stallion Bicycle Coffee Works.
Hi, my name is Myron Billy, and I'm helping Scott Neidham of Silver Stallion Coffee Bicycle Works.
Myron is helping Silver Stallion because Myron is a trained professional world-class mountain bike mechanic who's made Gallup his home for the next uncertain while to
Undetermined.
TBD to get this thing off the ground, which lies behind.
It's a mobile bike unit to go around the res and surrounding areas of Gallup to help out people with bikes, to educate people on bikes, and to do bike clinics and health reasons also too.
Yeah. And without the Outdoor Equity Fund and the Outdoor Rec Division, this would not be possible. So we are hugely indebted for helping us get a boost and make this happen.
Thank you very much.
So you met Scott and Myron, and this was a COVID-19 specific grant that ran along the same parameters, the Outdoor Equity Fund. We wanted to focus on kids. We wanted to focus on outdoor recreation, to create this mobile ride center using Myron's world-class bike mechanic skills and fix kids' bikes who had been stuck inside for months and didn't have easy access to a bike shop. And so that's one of the programs that we've propped up that addresses, I think, a long-standing need, both in transportation and recreation, using that Outdoor Equity Fund lens. And then finally, promotion, this fourth bucket, establishing New Mexico as the world leader in outdoor recreation that it absolutely is. We have a very specific strategy for this, and it's focusing on earned and owned media. So earned media, these are stories that we've pitched, they're interviews we've done, and it's all editorial. So we're not putting any ad buy money behind this. It's free, in other words. Is the work that we're doing is connecting with editorial teams throughout the country to talk about how great New Mexico is. Since the fall, we've had 60 earned articles generating millions of impressions, hundreds of thousands of viewer eyeballs, of unique visitors. So this is high quality, authentic content that's finding people both in New Mexico and then really around the world, wherever these publications' readership is. We're building a digital portfolio for the Outdoor Recreation Division. Starts off small, grows quickly. So we have already almost 2,000 social and newsletter followers. Again, really high quality audience, people who have sought us out and actually read everything that we send out, including our brand new newsletter. And then we've seen 713% growth in unique visitors. These are unique, real people to the website year over year. And we've been featured in dozens of national publications, which is really a big part of the goal of promotion and marketing when we're talking about out of state. So those publications have included the Associated Press, Snooze, which is a business to business, very highly respected outdoor industry publication, Outside Online, Men's Journal, REI Co-op Journal, and more. And it runs the gamut. We run the gamut between stories about trail etiquette, avoiding outdoor confrontations during the pandemic in Men's Journal, to a deep dive on all of the incredible outdoor recreation opportunities that Cuesta has. We're going to continue to pitch these stories, and we're going to keep earning this high quality editorial content to promote New Mexico's outdoor recreation. So these are the key outcomes we strive toward and the actions we pledge to take every day to hit those goals. Our success is dependent on collaboration with lawmakers, with businesses, nonprofits, state and federal agencies. Throughout this network, we aim to engage all New Mexicans as stewards of the state's incredible natural and cultural resources. And with that, I want to conclude and welcome any questions the committee might have.
Thank you very much, Director Navas. Fantastic work you're doing, and thanks for your flexibility this afternoon. There's several folks who want to speak. First, we'll stay here in the chambers. Representative Rebecca Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director, for the presentation. And before I say anything redundant, were you here during the Director of Tourism's presentation?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, representative, I was.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director Navas. So I'll ask you the same question. Are you aware of any conversations of relocating New Mexico State Parks from the Department of Energy and Natural Resources to Economic Development?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Representative Dow, I am not aware of any conversations that are currently ongoing about such a thing. I would be really curious to explore it with the leadership at the State Parks Division. Director Tafoya has done an amazing job, and then of course the secretaries at the departments. I would say, and Representative, perhaps this gets to some of the question, and it is that Director Tafoya and I have a very close working relationship. I said that we could not do anything without collaboration from other state agencies, and I'd say that the State Parks Division and MNRD as a whole is one of our really key partners, and especially with the Land and Water Conservation Fund being fully and permanently funded and seeing more of those federal dollars coming to the state. I think that's a real opportunity for us in New Mexico to invest in our public lands and waters, including state parks. So I think we have that close relationship, and I would also hope to see more of those federal dollars addressing some of the issues that you had seen come up.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. I have worked with New Mexico State Parks Director. I still feel that New Mexico Outdoors needs a champion. And what I've seen from you, Director Navas, is some leadership and someone who's willing to champion champion New Mexico's outdoors, and that would include New Mexico State Parks. I cannot even imagine being the director of a state parks or of a division like Energy and Natural Resources, and over the last 2 years when we had record surplus, being offered $20 million in capital improvements and turning them down. And the answer being that we don't subcontract any of our work out. Could you imagine if the Department of Transportation said they only did road construction, highways, lighting, if they could handle the capacity with their state employee staff, and we're not willing to subcontract even if those subcontractors were bonded. And so I think we had a really big missed opportunity at New Mexico State Parks when the leadership did not want the money that was being offered by those who had the power to give it to them in the finance department. But I like your 4 indicators, Mr. Chairman and Director Navas. The one indicator I see that's missing would be the investment in improving state parks, our rest areas. Is there a reason why one of the indicators wasn't the marked improvements or investments into our state parks?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, representative, thank you. I think that's a great question. As I see it, when I look at investment in state parks, but then also really all public lands, because that is the breadth of the vision that we have when we are looking at the outdoor recreation economy in New Mexico. We're looking at our federal partners as well. We're looking at lands managed by the Department of Game and Fish as well. We're really trying to measure it through work that the ORD can push forward autonomously, and then also can push forward and fund using both our programs and then some of these federal programs that I've mentioned, the Land and Water Conservation Fund, first and foremost among them. And I'd say the metric that I would look at most clearly to address your question, Representative, is that access to outdoor recreation. Is it easy? Is it accessible? Is it close to our main population centers? And then also that education and equity question. Are we enabling kids to get out to these places? And of course, to do that, they need to be well funded, they need to be well maintained, and that comes out of those key investments. And so I'd say those are the 2 metrics that I think of that most clearly touch on that question. But then, of course, we're also tracking what sort of investments come in. I want to make sure we're also tracking the outcome. What's the goal of the investment? And to me, I view it as increased access in a sustainable, equitable way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that, Director Navas. And I would think that since you're under economic development, it would be the amount of revenue, the increased visitorship, the 1 more extra stay, 1 more night, and that would be a measurable economic impact, because that's what we keep hearing. Tourism is investing dollars to get more people here, and economic development, you are under economic development because it is supposed to be part of building that. So when people come to a state park and there's no functioning comfort station, and the porta potties have feces above the toilet seat because they haven't been dumped or maintained, they leave and they go to our neighboring states. And so I would think that the length of the visit and the quality of the visit would have a fiscal impact. I think it's time for us to see state parks as an enterprise, and it's time for us to get aggressive about that. I noticed in the slideshow one of my favorite state parks, City of Rocks, it was one of the pictures, and they don't have a lot of visitors, but that park is very well maintained. It has a welcome center, it has a gift shop, it has running water, it has a nice comfort station, it has self-pay kiosks. These are all things that are missing at Elephant Butte State Park, our largest park that has the most visitors. So I think there really needs some, I'm glad you have a good relationship with state parks, and I know that the secretary, or Jen, when she was at hospitality, you guys have a strong team that should be focused on this, and it should be something that especially as the committee at Commerce, if we are going to be advertising and promoting our RV parks, they ought to be nice. And we ought to be charging enough that people get what they pay for, and that we're not just undercutting private business at the same time that we're letting our RV parks that are on our state lands fall apart. I think that we should be advocating to reduce sedimentation, that we should be advocating for minimum pools and a flow of water that minimizes the impact on our ecosystem and preserves the investments that we're making when we're spawning, we're putting in habitats, and those things are being destroyed every year because of the rise and fall of water levels. The infrastructure of Elephant Butte State Dam is in jeopardy. It's over 100 years old. When we drain that lake to 3% and then have a flood of water come in at a later date, I just am excited that the New Mexico Outdoor Department is choosing to be a champion, and I think all of these things are important, but the most important thing is that State Park is an enterprise. The part that it's an enterprise should not be neglected any longer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And now we'll go up to San Juan County before we go back down here in the chambers. Representative Rod Montoya. Representative Montoya, you with us? We'll come back to you, Representative Montoya. We'll now go to Doña Ana County, Representative Rubio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Navas, for all your leadership on this work. I just wanted to spend my time just sharing so much of the experience that I've had working with you over the course of the last year and a half, and that so much of what I envision for the Division of Outdoor Rec, particularly around equity and the Outdoor Equity Fund, that you've been able to seriously uphold and maintain the spirit of in which it was created. The idea of getting more young people outside wasn't just for this idea of creating a playground for people to just recreate, but really to create a new generation of stewards for our land and to really conserve it. We've seen other examples of what outdoor recreation has done in other states. And I'd like to say that New Mexico has learned from the many maybe mistakes that were made in other places, and we're really trying to do what we can here. I think that COVID has certainly unveiled to us a lot of inequities in a lot of different areas, whether it's from the issues around small businesses to broadband to other things. But outdoor recreation has certainly also shown us that people find healing outside. That's where they've been finding it for the past few months. It's where I find it myself. And so if we're able to commit to getting 36,000 kids, New Mexican kids outside, I think for me, that's worth the investment, especially when there's so many dire needs that so many of our young people experience. I feel like access to the outdoors really could become a tool to further develop our young people and to really create opportunities for them. So I wanted to take a moment to just share that and to also thank you for your leadership on this issue. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you on this moving forward. So thank you.
And what, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Representative Rubio, I would just love to address that for a minute, if I may. I so appreciate Representative Rubio's kind words and her leadership on really what I think is perhaps the most groundbreaking part of the Outdoor Recreation Division in New Mexico. And yes, indeed, it really is about growing, nurturing the next generation of stewards. I think as Secretary Schreier with the Tourism Department noted earlier, and as we, I think, have all witnessed personally, we have New Mexicans going outside in record numbers right now, and that warms my heart. I want to see that access. We also have to invest, as Representative Dow has pointed out, and I think a big part of that is that education investment for that next generation, to make sure that they have that access early on and that they grow up with respect for these incredible lands and waters, and they grow up with the drive to continue to protect them. So I appreciate that, and just wanted to amplify a few of those points that Representative Rubio made.
Thank you very much, Director. We'll go to here on the chambers, Representative Padro Colbert.
Thank you, and thank you, Director, for the presentation. I'm just curious, is your background in outdoor recreation?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my background is in journalism, is the short answer. I worked at Outside Magazine, where yes, I was the digital editorial director and steeped in outdoor recreation every day of my 7 years there. So professionally it is, and then I would also say personally it is as well. One of the points of the Outdoor Equity Fund that so energizes me is that I know personally I would not be where I am today. I would not be working in the outdoor recreation industry as I have for the past decade if it were not for the access that I had as a young kid growing up with trails in my backyard. And so do I recognize the privilege there? Yes, I was so lucky to grow up with that access. And I think it is important that we intentionally invest in lowering that access for other young people. in order to grow the outdoor economy and to protect these places that are so important. I know that's my personal story to it, and I think that is why, in a nutshell, access is so critical.
Thank you. I only asked that question because outdoor recreation used to be a component of majoring in recreation at the University of New Mexico back in the late 70s and early 80s. And we had a number of individuals who did specialize in outdoor recreation. So I was just wondering, you know, if your background came from that, or have you at any point talked with the universities about reestablishing that as a part of their curriculum? Because it was very important, and when that disappeared, you've seen a change of the folks that would come in and worked in those areas. So, like I said, I'm just curious. I wasn't trying to put you on the spot by asking your background, but to acknowledge the fact that you have that interest, but also to really encourage something like that to be a part of the physical education or recreation majors at our universities. I was a major, and I went into administration and program development. And I mean, it was a great job. It was a great opportunity. And I think young people are not really exposed to the value of being outside and being involved in recreational activities, except for the competitive activities. And so that's primarily why I asked the question, to really understand as to whether or not you did major in it, and to encourage the universities to encourage young people to major in outdoor recreation. Here in New Mexico, it's very, very special. And way back when I came along, you know, it was a state jewel. I mean, truly, you know, a jewel of this state, and we took great pride in it. And I'm glad to see that you are making the effort to go back in that direction. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you can answer my question in regards to the universities.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I love that question. Thank you so much for asking it. That is one of the key questions we intend to dive into with this National Park Service funded Cradle to Career outdoor education strategy. So we have leadership from the higher education department and then from a number of individual universities to dive into that. Is there a way we could have, let's say, a stacking certificate program that brings together all of our higher ed institutions in the state to create programs and pathways for young New Mexicans looking to get involved in the outdoor recreation economy? Everything from founding their own company, becoming the next founder of Patagonia, let's say, to becoming an employee with the U.S. Forest Service and the National Park Service. For example, I think there's any number of careers that type of degree in outdoor recreation can open up. That is one of the questions we want to dive into with some of the professional educators in this state.
Thank you very much. So I think hopefully Rod Montoya will join us shortly, but I have just a couple questions. You may have answered these before, Director, so tell us about your department. How many employees, what building are you in, things like that.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we have 2 employees. So it is myself and a project coordinator who we are lucky enough to have started just about a month and a half ago, and grateful for her work. We have doubled the size of the office. We are located in the Montoya building with the rest of the economic development department staff, although of course have been working from home like many of you since March. And so that's the quick overview. I think in times pre-COVID, we spent a lot of time traveling the state. That's all been a little bit more locked down, but hoping to resume that eventually.
Thank you very much, Director. Wow, 2 people, that's amazing. So there is because your division is doing so well and these conversations are happening, folks are viewing, and then of course the economic crisis resulting from the pandemic, a lot of folks are thinking with their economic hat on all aspects of state government. And so state parks is, it's about maintaining the land and enjoying oneself, but it's also about tourism and growing our economy. So I'm sure there will be some conversations on how to combine economic development, tourism, and the state parks, which is tucked away in terms of the structure of state government in energy and natural resources. Also, game and fish, and the game and fish is separate as well. And game and fish is not under any department nor under any secretary or governor. In fact, the director of Game and Fish is hired by the board, the Game and Fish Board. It may not be called that, but it's a really kind of strange structural situation within state government, and in which the Game and Fish department needs to have its economic hat on as well. And my constituents have told me that the law enforcement aspect of Game and Fish is just really draconian with regards to charging outfitters and hunters with crimes and the person next to them as a conspirator when there's no mens rea, there's no intent to commit those crimes. But anyway, there'll be conversations as well about what to do with game and fish and how to incorporate that into the tourism aspect of our state and the economic development aspect of our state. That the charge of game and fish in statute is essentially taking care of our hatcheries and our animals, and ensuring that the ecosystems are sound, but also that there's enough animals to maintain our hunting traditions and cultural traditions, and that the hatcheries are full and there's wonderful trout in the streams. I'm glancing around the chambers. There's folks with us, and I'm looking online to see who has any questions. And let me just go back to Representative Montoya. Representative Montoya, did you have any questions? Your hand is up in the WebEx app. So he must have stepped away. And I know that the executive branch and all the leadership from the executive branch is putting together their bill proposals, and hopefully we'll get an idea of what the chief executive and the secretaries, which direction they want to go in November, December. And then of course, our economic development committee, as well as other committees, are meeting we normally meet 3 days in a row in various cities. This time we're only meeting 4 days total. So we're not really dissecting into, statutory construction or bills, but more kind of broader ideas and broader economic themes, because we cannot afford another, 10-year recession. But we all know it's going to take a couple, 3 years to climb out if we do it right. Do you know, Director Navas, do you know if we have the stats, or if we need to step up as a legislature and ensure that these stats are kept? But do we know, for example, miles of bike lanes, miles of trails? Do we have the stats on the various parks? Theoretically, how many people could be camping in the state at one time? Does state government maintain stats like that? Do you know? And how do you think we could best do that?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I think that's a great question, and the honest initial answer is that we have a number of agencies keeping track of such stats, but I think that the accessibility to the public is often kind of opaque, frankly, because you have both state agencies and you have some private companies, and of course you have the federal agencies, each with their own data sets for the trails that they manage, the campsites that they oversee, and they don't live in one central place. So there are a few regions with those stats down to a pretty specific level, and forgive me that I don't have those at the tip of my fingertips, but I could send those as follow-up to this presentation. And then to the broader point, perhaps, I think that there would be quite a bit of value at the state level to have such an inventory. And as I say that, there have been a few statewide plans that point to such a thing. The tourism department's done a great job with the destination development roadmap. And within that report, there is an inventory of many of the recreational assets. And then I think the part where we can really home in on the question that you're asking and really develop this inventory in real time is through the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, which we are a partner on administering, that goes through the State Parks Division. Director Tafoya is the lead, but we are a close partner. And that's a report that's exactly what it sounds like. It's the statewide comprehensive outdoor rec plan, and that will include many of those data points that you're referencing. We have a SCORP right now for the state of New Mexico, but it expires this year, so we'll be working on the next 5-year plan this fall for planning for publication in early 2021.
No, thank you for that. Also, by chance, have you had a chance to visit with the ski industry? I think, hopefully we'll have a good snow season come December, January. We still have 3 months to improve our numbers on the COVID cases, things of that nature. And I'm not a skier, so I don't really know that culture, but golfing and camping is not as dangerous, so to speak, as, going to a movie theater or a concert. Do you think we'll be able to have a robust ski season this year? And what's the industry doing to prepare for that?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, it's a question that cuts close to my own heart because I am a skier. I've been skiing since about age 1, and so I'm very interested in what the ski season in New Mexico is going to look like. I think we have the best skiing in the country, some of the best skiing in the world, and we as the ORD want to be supporters of our incredible ski areas throughout the state. We also, of course, are going to follow the Department of Health and the governor's office lead on the public health data. And that, obviously, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what that's going to look like. But we also think that it's important to have a plan, have protocols in place. The ski areas are represented by a great nonprofit, George Brooks. We work really closely with him and have been in close conversations about what those protocols could look like. And then our goal is to serve, again, as that connective tissue between our ski areas, between Mr. Brooks, and between the governor's office so that they can get communication on what's safe to do, how it's safe to operate. And I think we as a state have had a lot of progress with the COVID-19 health data recently. And so there's talk to be able to actually establish some real protocols that keep people safe while also allowing people to ski. So top of mind, and really what we're doing is making sure that our ski areas have that communication open to the governor's office, to the Department of Health, so they can operate within the COVID safe practices, keep everyone safe, avoid outbreaks, but also be open to New Mexicans who love skiing and are able to really enjoy those incredible natural resources that our state has.
Fantastic, thank you. And hopefully this will be the last ski season where folks have to look over their shoulder if they're recreational cannabis users. Also, you mentioned the Outdoor Recreation Trade Alliance. There's a lot of fantastic economic development organizations. Many of them are incorporated nonprofit. They get dues from their members, very limited finances from state government, but theoretically state government can prop them up. Do you tell us a little bit more about the Outdoor Recreational Trade Alliance, and is there other similar organizations that are specific to outdoor recreation, if you know?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we're working as a close partner on the launch of Endeavor New Mexico. It's truly the brainchild of James Glover. He's the co-director and has been the one to put in the sweat equity to get that 501c6 propped up. That said, I see us continuing to be really close partners in the future, in large part because of the success some of these other similar trade associations have had, both in New Mexico, not specifically in outdoor recreation, but I look at, for instance, the New Mexico Hospitality Association, all the great work they're able to do in partnership with our great tourism department, but then also at the national level. We have the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, of which New Mexico is a member, and that is a industry alliance of several thousand businesses throughout the state, trade alliances throughout the country, that work specifically in outdoor recreation. So you have the RV industry, and you have angling and whitewater, all combined there under that outdoor recreation roundtable umbrella, which is then able to advocate for the industry as a whole. And then there are a number of states as well that have launched their own specific trade alliances, like New Mexico has now done, that are able to advocate, to champion the interests of the outdoor recreation businesses in those states. And I think part of that is to support those businesses in the state, and then also it can bring in new businesses as well who realize that this is an option. It's elevated to their radar because of the work some of these trade alliances have done.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Let's see if any other members wish to address you. And then let's see, I had one other question. So we have approximately 9 million acres of state land, and the state land office is charged with utilizing state land in the best interest of the beneficiaries. And of course, when statehood came around, it was timber sales and grazing. Now, of course, it's crude oil drilling, and with the move towards solar panels and things like that. There's so do you have you reached out to the land office, and is the land office kind of privy to what your division is doing with regards to increasing activities and outdoor recreation on state lands, by chance? Or what's your views on how we can utilize that 90 million acres for recreation?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, yes, we work very closely with the state land office, and to be honest, I'm inspired by the work that they do every day. Their outdoor recreation program manager, Craig Johnson, does incredible work, and then, of course, he works under the leadership of the land commissioner, who has established outdoor recreation as a real potential for those millions of acres of state trust land. And that's a pretty unique thing, I think, in the West, to have a land commissioner who is open to outdoor recreation opportunities. So we work really closely. Craig Johnson, who I mentioned, and is spearheading the execution of their outdoor rec efforts, he sits on my board. We have conversations frequently about how to work together, specifically around that special projects and outdoor recreation infrastructure grant. I'm keeping tabs on a few of the key projects they're looking at. We're trying to figure out ways to fund maybe some of the gaps that might be missing. How do we finish the trail that might go in the Roy area, or the Boot Heel, if there's portions of state trust land that just need a little bit of infrastructure funding? Can we help with that? So those have been the conversations. And then, like I said, we've been inspired to see some of the programs they've launched. The backpacking and dispersed camping programs in the Lueras, to name just one, is really impressive. And it sounds like the response to those programs has been huge, I think in large part because they have so many New Mexicans who are getting outside right now, and just how emphasizing to us at the state level how important outdoor recreation is to them, beyond the benefits we see from tourism, the benefits to people who live in this state when it comes to just well-being, quality of life, and public health. So that's really what we're focused on as well, and that's why hearing response rate to everything from the state land office programs to the outdoor equity fund is so heartening to us, and really what we want to continue to push forward.
Fantastic. I'm glad you mentioned public health and wellness. I mean, when you go camping, it just frees your mind and makes you feel great. Lastly, the federal government has tons of acres here in New Mexico. And so there's a lot of federal forest and federal land. I believe they're under the management of the Department of Interior. Do you have, I don't know who the local folks are in New Mexico from that department. Do you have an idea of who's on the ground from that department? Are they as receptive as the state land office to building outdoor recreation on federal lands?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we have a number of truly phenomenal contacts at all levels of federal government within those land agencies. So probably our closest partners in large part because of the acreage they manage are at the BLM, the Forest Service, and the National Park Service. We work really closely with representatives from each of those agencies, and I would say, yes, they are all responsive to outdoor recreation. I'll give one example. The supervisors at the five national forests in New Mexico run by U.S. Forest Service supervisors, part of their mission is to grow outdoor recreation access to these places, and the state and the Forest Service have a shared stewardship agreement to put in paper how we can work together, and how that manifests itself is really close collaboration and communication between my division and other divisions of state government with the Forest Service. So when it comes to prioritizing outdoor recreation infrastructure projects or finding resources to buoy a specific project on Forest Service land in New Mexico, we're able to come together and have those really concrete, effective conversations because we have those good partnership programs on the ground. So I'd say it's a long list, and it's also a few key players at those key agencies, and we work with them all the time.
Fantastic, thank you. Let's go back to the committee. If you could introduce yourself and address the speaker. Representative Lujan, welcome here in the chambers.
I think this is working. Here we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director Naves. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, it's Naves.
Naves, thank you, and thank you for being with us today. I just have one quick question. So as you're growing this industry and we're increasing the activities, how will you monitor overusage of the lands, or at what point do we let lands rest and recover? Is that part of your plan, and are you looking at that?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I would say we're looking at it all the time. And part of our goal is to increase access. And again, I want to emphasize that intentionally visitation, heads in beds, that's not one of our KPIs, not because I don't think it's important, but because I think we have an incredible tourism department who is focused on that, who is focused on increasing visitation. I think it is key that we at the Outdoor Recreation Division take that holistic view of the outdoors from the beginning, which is really why we've built these 4 metrics to be what they are. And this is a long-winded way of saying that I think that overuse and protecting the resources, that has to be top of mind. And that is why we have KPIs addressing that, those key performance indicators. So investment, we want to make sure that we are investing in these public lands and waters, both at the state level and the federal level. Big part of what we do is bring in those federal dollars, think about how we can use state dollars to protect these places and invest intentionally in them so they stay healthy and accessible for future generations. And then I think the long-term plan here has to be education. This is the point that Representative Rubio brought up and has come up in a few different ways, but that is why we focus on education too. Education of our young people to raise the next generation of land and water stewards. And then immediate education too, frankly. We have short-term education plans in place to educate people who are going out onto public lands right now to recreate responsibly, so that they are aware of the impact that they could have and ways to mitigate that. Because that is what we believe, is that with that proper intentional investment from the very beginning, we can open up the outdoors to all these, to people, all New Mexicans and our visitors, people who want to visit this incredible state. But we can't do that without some sort of balance and without some sort of intentional strategic planning from the very beginning to protect these places and then also raise young New Mexicans to continue protecting them in the future.
Mr. Chair, thank you for that information. And I just bring it up because I live here in Santa Fe, and I know that I have my favorite trails and I love going and I recreate quite often. And I know even now during COVID that we're going up to the trails that have been open to us, that, I've just had, folks tell me that there's too many people out there and there's a lot of litter and there's a lot of irresponsible behavior. So I just wanted to ask that question. I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Anyone else wish to address the director, comment or question? Looks like we're going to finish a few minutes early. There's nobody signed up for public comment, but I want to thank you, Ms. Navas, for your work, and be in touch with us between now and January, what statutory changes we need to make and ensure that tourism and outdoor rec is enhanced regardless of what happens to the overall budget. My colleagues are driving home hopefully safely, so I don't get to tease them, but by suggesting state parks need this, state parks need that, that requires an appropriation. That requires, good fiscal policy, tax policy. We talk about running government like a business. Well, businesses invest. Businesses don't take no spending pledges. They buy fancy computers, they buy innovation, they buy this, that, or the other. So investing in early childhood, road and transportation infrastructure, and broadband infrastructure are smart things for state government to do. So I'm really happy that this division was created, and your work, just have fun with it, and all you do is going to help this state tremendously. Sounds like a great job and a great opportunity. So thank you all. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We have 2 more meetings, so me and the co-chair, Benny Shendo, and some folks from the minority will be going over the last 2 agendas. We want to do kind of overarching themes and broad conversations gearing up for January. But thanks for the folks who drove up to Santa Fe, and the folks who were able to join us here today, especially folks who are not on the Economic Rural Development Committee, but joined us as special guests. So with that, thank you so much. Thank you, staff, for putting this together. Friendly reminder, be sure to request via email specifically your per diem and mileage for today. And thank you again, Ms. Navas, and appreciate your work, and stay in touch. And that'll do it for Economic Rural Development. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon. All right, cool, thank you. Thank you. We should just drive for 3 miles, come back, and just to say we did.